And now it's time for Fabulous Film and Friends. This week on Fabulous Film and Friends, we're going to scale down and take a look at the freaking sweet indie filmmaking skills of director Jared Hess with his 2004 quirky sleeper hit Napoleon Dynamite, starring Jon Heder, Gries, Ruell, Efron Ramirez, Tina Majorino, Haylie Duff, Trevor Snarr, Shondrella Avery, and Diedrich Bader, alongside the even quirkier and sleepier box office bomb Gentlemen Broncos, made in 2009 and starring Michael Angarano, Jermaine Clement, Jennifer Coolidge, Halley Feiffer, Hectór Jiménez, Mike White, and Sam Rockwell. I'm your host, Gino Caputi, and this week I have a panel of awesome wizards from Idaho and Utah, David Johnson, DDS, and Burton Brown, along with Texas fantasy author and hypnotherapist Joe Field, all three of whom are fully qualified to comment on the veracity and value of these two unconventional productions. Welcome, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
All right, before we enter a bizarro universe of dry lips, brown suits with snow boots, and retro primitive laser battles against rocket-launching chordate, the synopses. In Napoleon Dynamite, an awkward, misunderstood, but spirited high schooler hits back at the status quo in small-town Preston, Idaho, drawing fantastic creatures, dancing to funky music, and standing by Pedro Sanchez, a new student who bravely runs for class president. Gentlemen Broncos follows Benjamin Purvis, a young homeschooled writer whose sci-fi story Yeast Lords is plagiarized by Dr. Ronald Chevalier, a washed-up author teaching seminars for high school students. Do these films stand as classics or just offbeat oddities? Let's find out. All right, let's go around the room. Starting with you, David Johnson. Ye of the Alliance, just like Jared Hess. You have his experiences. You've been to Rick's College. Wait, did you go to Rick's?
I went 1 year, yeah.
Yeah, so you've been to Rick's College. You know the deal. Yeah. What's the better film?
Napoleon Dynamite.
Burton Brown from Idaho and living in Salt Lake City. You may not be Mormon, but you know these people. What's the better film?
Napoleon Dynamite, for sure.
And Joe Field, you're a writer. Have you ever had your work plagiarized?
Nope. Can't say that I have.
What's the better film?
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, I'll say that too. It's definitely Napoleon Dynamite. But I'm going to add, I watched both films twice this week. I actually like Gentlemen Broncos. It's weird, it's stupid, it's juvenile, but it's still pretty funny. So, I mean, I'm going to throw it out there. I think the reason why Napoleon Dynamite is the better film is simply Jon Heder. And Michael Angarano is a good actor. He's in one of my favorite underappreciated superhero movies, Sky High with Kurt Russell. And he's the lead. It's a funny film. It's still a legitimately funny and good movie. He's a good actor. He was just in one of the better films of this year, which was Horizon, the Kevin Costner movie. But yeah, he's good, but he's too much of a blank. I think that's my problem with it. He doesn't see Napoleon Dynamite takes charge, and Michael Angarano is just sort of reactive to everything. Other than that, they're kind of in the same sort of mold of making fun of all these quirks of small town life. So, thoughts, David Johnson? Why is Napoleon Dynamite better?
Well, let me clarify. I'm not Mormon anymore, but I know the experience.
But you don't have to be Mormon to like these films.
No,
sure.
absolutely not. No, I think Napoleon Dynamite, for me, it hits home. I mean, they're both small town. Gentlemen Broncos, the whole homeschool idea was just funny to me in their little dome house. But I think,
which you see all over Idaho and Oregon. You see all over in that area, which is funny.
But I think the reason I like Napoleon Dynamite is, I think Jon Heder is the reason why it's a better film. But I do like the the supporting cast. I think Kip is hilarious, and those two, the interactions are funny. Uncle Rico for me was funny because we all know somebody like that. talking about, back in '84, I could throw a football over the mountains,
Sure.
or a
Yeah.
quarter of a mile. And it's just that small town um, kind of, mindset. And I think is interesting is like out of all of the um, Jared Hess's films, that was his first one. And, he kind of hit a home run with that. And then everything else since then, Nacho Libre had some funny parts, but
Let me break in to our listening and viewing audience. I was going to do Nacho Libre. I just didn't have time, just because I just didn't have the time or energy. And I've tried twice to watch that film. I can't finish it. I'm not
yeah,
interested in it. I think it's just too much Jack Black. I just
yeah.
don't care about that film.
But it's just interesting. His first one, which was a small, I don't know, the budget was what, 250,000,
Four
and then
hundred
it just
thousand.
400,000, and it's made over what, 40 million now or
But
something.
remember, you just guys have to remember this, because I'm in the know. See, when you're in the know like me, I'm in the film biz, and when you're in the know, it's all BS.
Okay.
They're usually kind of stories to sell the film. But Fox Searchlight bought it from Sundance, and then I'm sure they poured a lot more, marketing,
Money
and they
into,
refilmed the credits, and they bought all the songs. So I'm sure there's.
yeah,
So on
more.
paper, he probably started with 400,000. I'll bet you think it was like 2-3 million by the time they were done.
But still, that was, in my
Yeah,
opinion, his best film,
yeah,
and the rest has just been kind of limping along, in my opinion. And Gentlemen Broncos had some funny parts, but to me, Napoleon was just an overall funnier film for me. Maybe it just hit
yeah.
home.
I really, yeah. Well, let's go around the room. But again, I'm gonna go. What's his problem with Jon Heder? Real quick, I just saw the previews to the Minecraft movie with Jack Black, and you got Jason Momoa. He directed it. Jared Hess directed it. So an upcoming big budget CG computer fest, and it's Jason Momoa playing the doofus with the voice like this, and I'm like, what? Why wouldn't you why wouldn't you go with your much stronger? Because I don't want to see Jason. See, Jason Momoa
Yeah,
might as well be The Rock. Might as well be
yeah.
The Rock or Ryan Reynolds in the freaking movie. I don't want to see that. But there's Jon Heder, who's great, and you're like, why has he been? Did you guys ever see that movie When in Rome with He was the only thing it was a terrible movie, but he was the only thing that was funny. And it was like, do you like my magic? Like the magician. It was so funny. And like the rest, it was like crap, but like, it was stupid. But he's funny. So it's like you got this secret weapon in this guy, and he's not using him. I don't know. It must be some sort of thing with Jared Hess thinking he doesn't need Jon Heder or something, Because I'm like, why would you not have him as your go-to guy? But anyway, Bert, what do you think? What was the question? Oh, what's better about Napoleon? What's better between the two films? Or
Well,
why does Napoleon Dynamite work and not Gentlemen Broncos quite?
well, the part I didn't really care for the Gentleman Broncos was too much of that, of the sci-fi action, I don't know even know if you want to call it sci-fi, but the acting out of what was written.
What?
And I don't,
I'm pushing back. That's the funniest stuff. The Sam Rockwell
well,
stuff.
only part of it is, but it was.
I think
still,
it's hilarious.
It was too
Both
much,
parts are hilarious.
But with Napoleon Dynamite, it was like, wait, I probably knew every one of those characters, growing up in Idaho, not in that area, that southern Idaho, but it was just, the FFA, all these things that rang familiar with me, the Rick's College T-shirt, the even Preston, we didn't go there, but we knew of Preston, Idaho, so that was like, oh, there's this big place, and there's somewhat familiar, and it's in Idaho, and it was just these nerdy kids, and there's something about the small town people, not in a negative way, but they just have these they're a little bit idealistic, a little bit naive, and I probably fall into that, maybe not as much as I used to now, but back then there was certainly some of that, where they've got all the classes in the school, they've got the jocks, they've got the bullies, they've got the the artist, which was and the Napoleons of the world, and I just think maybe not everybody, but a lot of people could relate to that more so than this fan fiction sci-fi. Even though I thought that was kind of funny too at times, I did laugh out loud during Gentlemen Broncos more than once. It was just kind of over the top for me, but
yeah, but
I'm sure
it's like one of Napoleon Dynamite's pictures come to life. It's just this
right.
stupid, like you got deer shooting
Napoleon
missiles.
Wrote that story.
Yeah, no, exactly. You got deer shooting missiles. You got all this nonsense. It's just fun. That part's the funniest part to me is all of that. The Sam Rockwell from one extreme, like the rough and tumble Southern accent, to the Prince mincing. Oh, it's just wonderful. It's just fun. It's just really funny. Like, I can't believe he did that. I just want to, real quick before I get to you, Joe, I just want to interject. I was reading that the studio had to define, when they saw the film at Sundance, they were really confused as to what era it was. And they really wanted to define that it was present day, and they had to tell people. And I'm like, that, and Jared Hess is like, yeah, but I live in a small town in Idaho, and everything is sort of like, you can't tell what era you're in even when you live here. That's right. And that is totally the Vail experience. You go, our small town experience is nothing changes that much. They still use like right now they'll still use DVDs and buy DVDs. Even though the rest of the country isn't.
They're about 20 years behind.
Yeah, and those jackets, all those jackets and those snow boots. It rings true. It really does. Anyway, Joe, why do you think Napoleon Dynamite works better than Gentlemen Broncos?
Well, I have to agree with Dave. I think that honestly, the supporting cast is a huge factor in why it's better. I think that it's not necessarily that it's the main cast in Napoleon Dynamite is acted better, but I think that the characters are just, there's a lot more likable characters. Like Kip, for all his sort of like little ridiculousness, is still kind of funny and enjoyable to be around. I think Uncle Rico, for being as awful a person as he is and so slimy a human being, there is still something that's kind of funny and like oddly charming about him. I think that for Pedro and for Deb, I think that they're both kind of also the sort of lovable outcasts. And I think that it's kind of, I find that having those two as sort of sidekicks versus in Gentlemen Broncos having, I'm going to have a hard time remembering their names, but the girl who suddenly finds herself interested in our main character and the little film director. I don't think either of them are bad.
Pretty grotesque. It's a much more grotesque film, but it is I think it's him sort of acting out on just the movie business with his small town Idaho troupe. Mm-hmm. That's Halley Feiffer though. So Halley Feiffer, the actress playing what's her face? Gosh, what's her name? Anyway, the producer basically, and the one who likes French romance. Mm-hmm. She's Jules Feiffer's daughter. Jules Feiffer's a pretty famous playwright. So they're all more seasoned, but I will admit, like even Mike White, he's funny, but he's pretty unlikable. And Mike White's just one of those weirdos anyway. He just has that. You talk about, he's not Mormon, but he has that face of a Mormon missionary. And you slap a curly wig on him, and he's just white trash all the way. And he's hard. He's a good director and a good producer though, and a good writer. Because I don't know if you ever saw the show Enlightened with Laura Dern and Luke Wilson. It's fantastic. And I can't stand for the most part Laura Dern, but it's Mike White's show. He's got a lot to say. So he is kind of funny, or not even kind of funny. I thought he was pretty funny as this sort of, well, I didn't like what he did to my voice. I sound like a leprechaun. He's funny, but I think, again, I think it's there's no glue, like, see, Napoleon Dynamite, because let's face it, Uncle Rico, I never even thought about it earlier. Real quick, let me just back up. I've seen this film. I own the DVD. I got it in 2004, 2005, whenever. And then I just stopped watching it. I just lost interest and didn't watch it until now. So it's been a good 20 years since I've seen it, or at least 19 years since I watched it. I never picked up on Uncle Rico being a sleazeball child molester, but there's that scene with him and Tina Majorino, and then you're like, ew, what's he saying with this? I forgot that he comes on to her. So and both films have a lot of sort of under the surface latent sexuality that you're like, it's childish, but it's there. And I definitely didn't pick up on Napoleon Dynamite, even though I was a full-ass grown man when I first saw it. And I didn't pick up on it. I was like, I didn't pick up on it so much, but it's there for sure. Like the mother and, the Trisha's mother. The whole reason why he has to go to the dance is because of her. Never even occurred to me before. So, anyway. So I don't think all the characters are just so likable in Napoleon Dynamite. I think they're not glued together as well. That's, I think, the difference.
In Gentleman's Broncos.
Correct.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
And I like Michael Angarano's performance, but it's almost so subtle as to not hold things together. He's so reactive. He does a good job playing who he's supposed to play, but he's written as such. He has no spunk until the end, and even then it feels like it's a little too late. Because Jennifer Coolidge is funny too, and she's not paying. What's Spiffler? What's a guy from American Pie? The mother, and she plays. It's a sleazy part, and that's what kind of put her on top. Though she was hilarious in Best in Show and all those Christopher Guest movies, but I liked her being kind of playing normal, and just playing this sort of daffy homeschooling mother with her dress company. I like her in it. She's just. I think her character arc isn't strong enough. Something about it seems like he didn't do enough. Like, for whatever, Kip gets a decent story arc. I don't love what's her name, LaFonda. Too much eye rolling and smile. Too much like over the top facial movements with both of them when they're in love. It should be much more matter of fact. At least. That's what I was thinking this time. I thought, that part doesn't... It's funny, and I buy it, and I think it works, and he's wearing the headscarf, and peace out, peace out, and all that. That's fine, but the love thing between the two is way over the top. Like, he's like two amateur actors showing that they're in love, like they're in a French movie or something, or a silent film, the way they're smiling at each other and all that. It's to me, it just should be more matter of fact is all. Anyway.
I feel like, though, that with the character of Kip, nobody is expecting this woman to be as into him as she clearly is.
But it works.
And so, the overacting in those instances is almost hilarious, seeing how demonstratively attracted to Kip she is when she has no business finding him as attractive as she does.
I disagree. I've seen plenty of relationships that look like that. I think all she had to do was run off the bus and hug him and kiss him, without all the sort of like smiles and like, again, it looks like you're watching a silent movie, and it's like, it feels like a student film right there when she comes off the bus and is making all those faces. It's like, I would have cut those. I would have just had her run up and kiss. She's just been waiting all this time. As somebody who married somebody who through an internet relationship, I know I don't think this is as accurate as it could have been.
See, and I like Kip and Napoleon's interactions the best.
Yeah.
Like for me with LaFonda, I like the interactions before she came into the film. I just like Kip's character before that. After that, it's like, this to me it just felt a little over the top.
It's a little sitcom-y. It's
over the top.
For sure.
Yeah. But when he's with Napoleon and he's like, I'm sorry, I've seen this movie a bunch of times. Why do you eat all the frickin' chips, Kip? And then he's like, Napoleon, don't be jealous. I've been chatting online with Bay. I mean, those kind of interactions are just hilarious to me. And so
it's hilarious. You don't like Rex Kwon Do, or you were telling me earlier Rex Kwon Do's over the top, but when he's slapping the hell out of Kip, it's really funny.
No, that is funny. Yeah. Grab my hand. The other hand. Anyway,
hold it like this.
Yeah. But I just felt, what's that actor's name? Who plays
Diedrich
Rex?
Bader?
Yeah, I just felt it was a little, as one who's done jiu-jitsu and judo and and all that stuff. He's a little over the top, but you know.
What's the difference between that and Ben Stiller in Dodgeball? I don't
No,
see
I
any,
agree. I
you
agree.
know.
Yeah. That's true.
It's just it's a big over the top performance, but it's funny. Like,
Yeah.
What's he say? But fruity pie or whatever he's saying when after Kip sits down.
You want me to dress like Peter Pan here?
Yeah, Peter Pan.
Yeah.
No, he's fine. I mean, it is what it is. It's comedy after all. So it's I think
that character was just, again, it still came across as a small town deal.
Yeah.
You know, there's the small town martial artist who thinks he's all that, who might know a few moves, but who's
married to a transvestite. Right. So even that's bizarre. There's all this stuff going on that I never gave it a second thought before.
I just thought it was some muscle woman, but anyway.
Well, yeah, she is, but she looks like a man. I mean,
exactly.
So, and there's a lot of that, and that's the thing. All the little seeds that you see in Napoleon Dynamite definitely transfer over into Gentlemen Broncos. It's like, holy cow, he's really gotten to sort of this psychosexual stuff that I never even attributed to it, but he's a weird guy. Let's face it. Gentlemen Broncos is weird. It's not like, it's just it's a strange movie.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, no.
But I could just see, you were in the small town just like I was, just a different one. If someone was going to set up a karate shop, were they really all that good? Were they really a black belt? Or 13 or 30 degree, or I don't even know how they're rated. Were they really Chuck Norris and with a different name, or were they just someone that knew a little bit more than everybody else, and happened to work, happened to say, well, I'm going to set up this thing and teach karate and have people pay me $300 for the thing, and I could just see that. There was
I don't question it. Yeah, I don't question any of it. Yeah. It seems fine to me. Even the way he talks, it's just Diedrich Bader doing a deal, But he's an experienced actor. I mean, he was at that point. I'm amazed they got him,
Yeah.
But he said, I was reading. He read the script and he said it's one of the best scripts he ever read.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I remember from Drew Carey's show. That's what I remember from.
Right, but then he did Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, that's right.
And then he did, and he was funny, and he was the only legitimately funny person in that film.
Yeah.
And then he was in Office Space. So he had already done a few movies long before. And Tina Majorino was in Waterworld.
Yeah,
so right. he got a pretty experienced cast. And then he's got Haylie, what's her, not, it's Haylie Duff, what's her name? What I already read.
Haylie Duff.
Yeah, you got right? Haylie Duff. She was on some shows. She was on the, what was Hillary Duff on? It wasn't. I always want to say Hannah Montana. I wasn't watching any of that stuff.
Lizzie McGuire.
Lizzie McGuire, right? And she was in a movie. And I mean, again, so for his low budget, he got decent actors for sure. And the fact that they all went along with Jon Heder is pretty good. Because I guess whoever bankrolled the film wanted to get like a bigger star, but he insisted on Jon Heder. But then again, I don't know what's going on.
But I think they were. I do have some insight. I think they were friends. I think they all went to BYU together.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
No, but the money people, the people who were putting up the money, were like, you got to get a bigger star to because usually what happens is you get a star attached, and then the money comes in because people go, Kevin Costner wants to play Napoleon Dynamite, and then investors want in because they think they're going to make money on it.
Be Nicolas Cage, not Kevin Costner.
Yeah, there you
go. Exactly, but but that's how it works. So I think the money people did want a bigger star, and he held firm and said, no, it's got to be him because nobody else can play him. And he was right, of course.
That's true.
But yeah, I haven't seen the Blades of Glory. Have you guys? How is it, Joe?
I don't think I've seen it.
It's been a while since I saw it, but it's pretty funny, and I think Jon Heder's performance kind of shines. It's quite a bit different from his role as Napoleon Dynamite. Like he's not playing the dork; he's playing the very artistic, if slightly effeminate, ice skater, like figure skater.
Right.
In sharp contrast to Will Ferrell's like sex powered, like man's man kind of figure skater, which I'm sure is not a thing, but I think it's a pretty funny movie from what I can recall, and I think Jon Heder does a lot of the heavy lifting in there.
You know, I worked with Jon Heder on a movie called Just Like Heaven, and it was at the end of 2004, and I hadn't seen Napoleon Dynamite, and I didn't think two things of it. You know, I didn't know who he was, and he was a tall SOB. You know, I was like, that's all I remember. He was just like a big giant, but he had feathered hair, and he looked really really normal, and I just didn't think about it. And then I saw Napoleon Dynamite. I'm like, holy crap. Look at his hair and everything. He's really a good actor. Because, you know, and just like Heaven, he just played this, hey man, kind of guy, you know. And this, so I know he's, again, the magician and When in Rome, I mean, I know he's capable of better than he's been cast, you know. And he's one of those actors, it seems like he should have gone further based on his abilities. But maybe typecasting, I don't know. But then again, like, he's not to be anywhere to be found in Nacho Libre, and right, Dave? I mean, I haven't finished the film. I can't finish the film because I find it
he's not in it.
Yeah, and then he's not in. What's the film he did? He did a film. That's why I thought maybe Jared Hess left the Mormon Church. He did that film with Sam Rockwell about the biblical expert who keeps finding these documents and they're all forgeries. Did you see that one? It was on Netflix.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
one.
I don't think it played in theaters. I saw it and it was kind of interesting, but not as funny as it should have been, but still kind of funny. You know, like all his sort of later films. But it's all that sort of document stuff. You know, like the guy who scammed everybody for those documents.
Hoffman.
Right. So it's about a guy like that. And so I thought, that's kind of weird that he's zeroing in on that. But okay. Anyway, he's still in the church, Dave?
I don't know.
Okay.
I would, if I had to put money down, I'd probably say no, but I don't know.
According to Wikipedia, he's still a practicing Mormon.
Right.
If that, again, Wikipedia could easily be wrong. I'm not saying it's gospel, but
that I don't know.
Yeah,
but there are levels, right? So who knows?
Yeah, but anyway, I thought it was just interesting that he would attack like that aspect of, you know, the forgeries of biblical documents. So I thought, kind of interesting. He produced that documentary too.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, you know that documentary we watched? He produced that too. Anyway, getting off topic. Well, what do you think each film? Okay, so let's get into the themes of it all. What's Napoleon Dynamite really about? If it's about anything. Joe.
I think a big part of Napoleon Dynamite is, part of it is taking just a snapshot look at, you know, what it's like living in a small town, kind of isolated. And I think there's also a pretty strong theme of, like, you know, there's a lot more, even though the popular kids might seem to get the spotlight, there's a lot more of the nerds, dweebs, and, you know, other kinds of otherwise outcasts that you're going to end up finding than the popular kids. I think especially kind of like the end of Napoleon Dynamite is, like, his performance. It's like the real popular kids weren't really all that happy with it or didn't really seem to care all that much, but everybody else loved it. And I kind of think that's indicative of, like, okay, yeah, this is a sign that, like, even the kind of nerdy kids can be cool to some extent.
But I'd say what makes this film stand out above most films about nerds and outcasts is he's got a lot of spirit and fight in him.
Yeah.
So he never... It's not I can't fit in. He doesn't care. You know,
he's unabashedly himself. Yeah.
Yeah, and his speech, like, again, when the guy slams in the locker and he kicks at him, you know, or he's like, "Jeez," you know, when the guy kicks his tater tots, he's always sort of defiant about it. And, you know, hey, Gina Baugh, if you're out there, she was like that. We all, and even me, and I was a nerd, and we kicked on this girl. And just, you know, we're just so mean to this poor girl. But she always had this sort of fight where she wasn't going to put up with it. Do you remember her, Dave? Gina Baugh, she was in my class. People were.
I remember the name.
People were mean to her. I was a jerk. Hey, Gina, if you're out there, I'm sorry. I was an ass. 7th grade ass. But we all did that. But I always sort of respect the fact she didn't really take any crap from anybody. And I thought that's what's recognizable in Napoleon Dynamite is yeah, there are these guys who don't just wilt, who are defiant to the end and fight and whatever, you know. And I've certainly witnessed that. I think that's what makes the film a cut above your typical goofball nerd story, you know, is that he's fighting. Yeah, girls like a guy with a lot of skills, you know. You know, like
he's good with the bow staff.
Yeah.
There's not enough
skills, bow skills. No, it's just funny, like all the things that he holds dear, you know. And so, anyway, Bert, what do you think? What do you think? Oh wait, Joe, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What about you're a writer? What are we talking about in Gentlemen Broncos? What is that? What's going on in that film?
A lot. I think that Gentlemen Broncos, there's an interesting amount of there's a lot of weird things to be able to pull out. I mean,
overarching theme, what would you say it's about? Because I feel, okay, I'll just throw it out there. I think it's his response to the Hollywood system. That's what that's what jumps out to me. Like, everybody is sort of a phony. It's a harsher world than Napoleon Dynamite for sure, you know. But he's still, like, holding on to this childish world of lasers and Cyclops. It kind of has that Liger thing going on, you know, right? So there's that, but then he is surrounded, like, you know, can I have money for a tampon? And, you know, and then, of course, she comes back with all this food.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got this for me and Lonnie, you know. It's like, yeah, he's being screwed over all the time by a bunch of, again, he's screwed over in his personal life. He's screwed over, like, with his guardian angel. You know, there's all this stuff going on. So, anyway, that's how I would sum it up. It's sort of a story about artistic integrity.
Yeah, I think it's artistic integrity, but also, like, I think also if you are being honest with yourself and, like, whatever you're really interested in, what you're passionate about, other people will also be interested in, but there will be people who will try to kind of steal that from you to some extent. So, because the whole idea of his novel is these yeast lords and things is bizarre. Like, it's so strange.
Yeah.
And I feel like it also very much inspired by, like, if you go to any thrift store, you'll find a bunch of these, you know, old novels. I mean, I say older novels from, like, the, you know, early 80s, you know, late 70s that are, you know, these 50,000 word, you know, novellas of, like, you could buy them for 99 cents or whatever.
That's expensive for a thrift store.
I mean, back when they were new,
right,
you know,
right.
is what I mean.
Oh.
But, like, you know, like, they're not anything special. Like, these were things that they really pulpy. They, you know, pulled all these things out, and you get the sense that, like, this is a kid who read all of those, and like, that was probably what he could afford. And he ended up writing a book that was largely inspired by this sort of specific kind of, like, writing style.
Well, he's also got this mountain man ranger of a dad, and that does, you know, what's her face does sort of point it out, like, oh, so you're the seed of your dad, you know, and it's kind of funny because, like, yeah, she did guess it, and so I think there is something going on with that. But yeah, no, the novels, obviously, the book covers in the beginning define what this is about. All these sort of strange adventure tales that he's just not very good at, but he's better than everybody else. You know, it is just like the work of a pure child. You know, it's just like this. So I find it funny. To me, it reminds me of Wes Anderson with an Idaho flavor. You know, it has these sort of, like, single-mindedly filming these special effects that look crappy on purpose. You know, and that reminds of Wes Anderson.
Well, that's also the way that those segments are written too.
Yeah,
is like, if you, like, you're really listening to what the characters are saying to each other and how they're talking. It's like, I could believe this was written by like a 16-year-old boy,
Right.
you know, who just consumes this stuff nonstop.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. No, I agree. Bert, you look ready to talk. What do we film? What's the theme going on? What's going on here? Starting with Napoleon.
If I was going to put a theme on it, I don't know if there's an overarching theme. I did like the idea that you said, you know, he was just unabashedly who he was. He wasn't trying to be popular. He wasn't trying to be anything, really. You know, he just was living his little small town life that happened to put him in the FFA, and it happened to put him in the Happy Hands Club, and then he happened to, you know, he has these oddball family members, and he's right along, you know, he's just as oddball as them. So he's not trying to be something he's not. And, you know, I don't know that you, what do you just want to say? It's not like you reward that. It's just, this is what was presented. You know, here's these quirky little people. They wouldn't necessarily happen to live in a small town, but these people did, you know, and small town life. Okay, maybe this was taken to extreme for comedic effect or something, but a lot of this, you know, you and I and Dave, at least, I don't know where Joe grew up, but, you know, it was, we can relate to some of this, and certainly some of these people, you know, and it's just this odd little, it's like, I don't know, it's not making fun of small towns, but like for me, it's kind of just laughing at myself, you know, because I can see a little bit of, I mean, not necessarily myself specifically, but my life. I can see in some of that, and it's just like, you know, it's pretty absurd and pretty silly, you know, and I don't know that I know the specific theme for that.
Well, but again, I think I said it basically in my synopsis. He is fighting back against the status quo, and that's why I think people like it. It really is a rebel movie. You know, he is a rebel. That's why I think it resonated with everyone, became a hit, because he doesn't, as I said, he doesn't take it, which is, that resonates with people. It's not a sad sack story where it's not believable. He's believably scrappy and believably single-minded. And again, I've already cited, you know, the classmates that I saw that, and you know, that's what's interesting about the film is he's, you know, his mother or his grandmother looks like a lesbian, and then Rico says, "Oh, she's on a date." And it's like, no, she wasn't. She was with all women. And you're like, what's going on there?
In the sand dunes.
Yeah, no, and it's fun. It's funny because, you know, we grew up with that. I can tell you in Vail, like there were these families. Again, if I had come in from San Francisco being gay, I probably would have been pummeled. You know, but there were families in Vail whose children were gay who were completely accepted. You know, and so it's just a difference of what small town mentality is like, and it's a lot of times more forgiving than people in dumb movies will give it credit for. You know, it's like, well, no, there's a dynamic of, if you're from that area, you're accepted. If you're not, forget you. You're going to get everything coming at you. You know, so which is, I find interesting about the whole.
Think of that. I could see that
with the whole Pedro thing, because he sort of takes, being an outcast, he takes up for Pedro. You know? Luckily, Pedro's backed up by his like goon, lowrider cousin,
his gang members.
So he's got some backup anyway. But there is just a certain dynamic that reads as true, and that's why, like, even in a stream of consciousness or a surreal movie, which it is a surreal view of it all, but it reads. It all reads is true to me, true to my experience in a small town, because it all does nothing. None of it seems like, oh, that just wouldn't happen. The only thing I think wouldn't happen was the eye rolling and smiling off the bus. That just seemed like, as I said. So that's my only part in the entire film where it feels fraudulent, like he's doing a sitcom, you know.
Yeah, but I could probably see that eye roll thing too. So I don't know. I could see
I base it on my
I know
experience.
It struck you funny, but yeah.
I base it on my experience where things are always more matter of fact,
Yeah.
and again, Nine and I did the same thing. My wife did the same thing, and it just seemed like, he could have done that better. He could have been as true as he was with Napoleon and Kip, because their relationship seems completely 100% like real brothers.
Yeah,
and I think that's where he dropped the ball. That's the only time I feel he dropped the ball. Everything else reads true to me. Anyway, what about the Gentlemen Broncos? Thematically.
Well, it was, I guess you could say, underdog again. And he had his story stolen, and so, and he had, well, in his mind, he had no recourse and wasn't standing up to it, like you were saying. He wasn't defending himself or wasn't fighting for himself.
Well,
but until his mother, coughs up this, oh, here's your original manuscript and it's dated or whatever. I save all your stories, And somebody had some
it's
legal
definitely
cause
pro WGA.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say, that looked like a little bit professional binding and all this stuff. But anyway, no, it was. I had never thought of it until you said it. It probably was his statement against Hollywood.
I think so. Yeah.
In his experience, where, if he'd have gone in there naive with his Napoleon Dynamite story, somebody would have tried to steal it or rewrite it slightly, but still use it. I'm not saying that happened or that it tried to happen, but he must have had some elements of that experience.
Oh, sure.
Where you're the incoming new writer, a screenwriter, or whatever you are, or just writing a screenplay, and someone else really likes it, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't have shown it to him.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to steal my idea or something.
Well, you have no leverage, as somebody who's written scripts and sent them out, and then suddenly there was this, always feels like when you have that idea churning and you're excited for it and you throw it out there, then suddenly everybody has that idea. You back off, then the idea is gone.
I don't know.
All right, Dave, let's get you talking.
Okay,
What do you think Napoleon Dynamite means?
So I have, I agree with everything that's been said, and Joe's probably going to analyze me here. But, I look at Napoleon almost like that's Jared Hess's life, right? Small town, had these great ideas. He's in his own kind of world, was defiant when people, if they made fun of him, like you said, how Napoleon's character was. Gentleman's Bronco was like, he's been dealing with all that, and because the main character, what's his name in Gentleman's Bronco? Benjamin is a doormat. He's been beaten down, just taken advantage of.
And he keeps notice he's always believing people. He
Yeah.
always believes them at their word. Oh, $500. That sounds great.
So, you get out of a small town and, and then you start, oh, I'm going to go to this and turn in one of my scripts or whatever.
Right.
And then he just gets stolen, and he's beaten down more and more and more. And it's almost this, whereas Napoleon was defiant, Benjamin was a doormat, and he had to flip to become defiant at the end. And I just wonder if some of Jared Hess is in that himself. Just both of those together. Because at the end of Napoleon Dynamite, everyone's cheering for him when he does his dance and everything. And, small town. And then you move to the next step, which is almost like Napoleon Dynamite. Hey, I made this great film, and now I'm going to the next step where there's bigger budgets, more studio input and control, and you start to get beaten down some more, and they want to change this and change that, and in the end, he goes back to his roots, I guess, kind of how Benjamin's story, Yeast Lords.
Yeah.
And he gets his book and is successful. I just look at it more like his personal experience, hero's journey, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of in both.
Now, again, and I think because, as I've said, there's no, like, the character is he's too weak in a sense, like he's too accepting, so he doesn't fly in the face of all the wackiness, But let's face it, that trailer to she has a horse, money.
Just
that is really
boy.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I don't care if you have the best horse in the valley, or whatever he says. There are really funny, just that video, that washed out video look. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Like he does these things that are like, yeah, it's pretty hilarious. So I mean, I laughed quite a bit during. I mean, the things that were funny were really funny. I will say the glue isn't there, to make it like a satisfying film. But again, Sam Rockwell screaming about the little cow chip that he's nibbling on. It's like, okay.
The yeast patty.
Yeah. Well, this is high-end beef or whatever. Okay. It's funny. Like, okay, he's just out there doing it. Like, okay, he doesn't care that it doesn't make a lick of sense. He's just going for it, which I find hilarious. So, I don't know. Yeah. I totally agree in that regard, that it's obviously a personal journey, and at the same time he's just having fun with just because as somebody who's been a judge or a presenter at the Vail Film Festival, that's the level of filmmaking you're going to get, and which he knows that, and that's funny. And I'm not knocking anybody in Vail aspiring to make films, but they're just starting with video cameras, and they don't have the lighting, and it's all washed out. So it just seems like, he's kind of having his cake and eat it too. He's not and that's what's good about it. He's not slamming small town America the way Hollywood will.
Yeah.
He's part of it, which gives it its legitimacy. And unfortunately, too many, city guys and people from environments that just they can't relate whatsoever because they have this stereotype in their mind. And that's the difference, I think, with Jared Hess, is he's of that element, so there's some authenticity to it. That's all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything more to be said about let's, before we dive into actors, favorite scene in Napoleon Dynamite, Dave?
My favorite scene is when the school bus pulls up and that old farmer cocks his shotgun and just you don't see it, but you hear the gunshot, the kid scream. That's actually my favorite scene. He's like this, and he's just swearing under his breath. I just think that's hilarious because that would happen.
Okay, gentlemen, Broncos.
I like the scenes. Actually, I like it with who's the bad author?
Jermaine Clement.
Clement.
Ronald Chevalier.
And his just interactions with Benjamin, to me, are just hilarious. I thought he was my favorite. He and his mom were my two favorite characters in that movie.
Jermaine Clement, I only even heard of the guy from Moana, because he's the voice of the sea creature who at the end, at the big when they go underwater. It's
Tamatoa.
Yeah.
I mean, his look. He has that wireless headphone in, for his phone.
The point I was gonna make is he's originally how I thought of a Napoleon Dynamite, the movie itself. I couldn't decide heads or tails if I thought it was funny or over the top, or his performance is so over the top that at first I thought he was irritating. But after a while, I started just laughing. And then the second time, I forgot about it. And I said, this is a really funny performance. But it does veer on, like, just out there. Like, way over the top. Because he has that voice. And it just seems like, what's he doing? What is this?
When he's writing the names, teacup.
Exactly.
It's just, those scenes are funny.
That's wrong. That's a really, first time you watch a movie, you're just sort of taking it in. The second time, what if I want to call it teacup? No. You're telling me about trolls? I wrote the book about trolls.
Yeah.
No, he's a really funny performance. Yeah. But it's hard at first. It's like, but again, the first time I saw Jon Heder, I was like, what? I'll do whatever I want. Gosh, jeez, whatever. I was like, what? I couldn't tell if it was real or not. He just. So anyway, his style grows on you.
Yeah. Anyway, those are my two favorite. Just him on the chalkboard writing names up. That stuff's funny to me.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. There's a lot of funny things in it. Joe Field, favorite scene in Napoleon.
I am going to be very basic and just say I really appreciate his dance choreography.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that was also just a huge part of like my teenage years of people copying that and like I don't know, it was just fun.
I have a friend who's been on the show, Mark Workoven. He would always dance in secrets of our life together in an apartment, sharing an apartment in college. He would dance in his room, and I'd be like, gun, 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 "What are you doing?" He'd be all sweaty. What? Nothing. Just dancing. Like, well, he'd be like, "What? You're dancing?" So I just think it's funny because I've known people, at least that guy, who would just sit in his room and dance, which again is completely foreign to me. But I think it's funny. It's so that part cracks me up. But anyway, gentlemen Broncos.
Before we even started talking about it, I love Dr. Chevalier's class. Yeah. Talking about how to properly name characters, because that's just it's such a. I mean, and what if I want to name my troll Teacup? He's like, no. And it's just like that's.
I don't like it.
Yeah. But it's so funny because it's like I don't know. I feel like sometimes you can see these different like fantasy or sci-fi authors who just get too big for their britches and feel like they are the final say on any creative endeavor. Like
have you ever been to a writing seminar?
I haven't. No, I listen to like different writing podcasts.
Okay, well, I've been to one for screenwriting, and they're like that. You pitch your idea, and they immediately tell you that it's terrible. So I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
So it's another good one we got to cover is just real quick is Adaptation with Nicolas Cage. So it's sometime and that with Brian Cox playing the Sid Field screenwriting guru. It's hilarious. So anyway, that's got to be coming up at some point. But I just think he's bagging on that whole scene, and it's really funny, especially with little kids, Like,
and just tearing them down, and it just I don't know. It's just such a funny and I think kind of perfectly weird scene.
Yeah.
But
all right, Bert, favorite Napoleon Dynamite.
Well, my favorite scene is the bus and the cow thing.
Okay.
A lot of times when they involve the farmers or the chicken farmers, when they were having to work at the chicken farm. It's just the way they talk, and it's like you got to listen close, and you're like, okay, it's not.
But we got to talk a little bit. Okay, let me let you finish. We got to talk about the grotesquerie in both films. With the eggs and the chicken poop, and then the rat poison laced human poop darts.
That was probably.
What is that? Orange juice mixed with eggs? Is that what they're drinking, Dave?
Raw egg and
yeah.
Is that a thing?
I thank goodness I never had it.
You have to. Maybe Rocky, he used to drink raw egg stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but mixed with orange juice, it's just so gross.
That wasn't as bad as the rat poison dart.
See, that was the funniest part, I think, or the funniest scene to me was when they shot the mom.
Really?
It was pretty. I laughed pretty hard, and then it was funny when she goes to meet the designer that was going to produce her line, and that whole. I don't know. I thought that whole scene was kind of funny.
Yeah.
The shootout and everything.
Oh, the shootout's hilarious.
Yeah. That was probably, if I had to pick a favorite for Gentleman Bronco, that would probably be at that sequence, not just a specific scene, but that whole sequence that got him there. Where she's just got her eyes. It's just, again, it's that naivety. It's like, oh, yes, he's going to produce my line while he just wanted her in bed.
But him putting up the mannequin and then blowing the darts is pretty fun. Yeah. I laughed quite a bit at that. All right, because I know you're dying to know. My favorite scene is him telling Pedro about the skills. That always sells. Every time I think I may not like parts of the movie, that always sells the movie for me. He's just nunchuck skills, hunting skills.
Bow staff.
Yeah, but that part always cracks me up. And then it's just Sam Rockwell is the princing, or like the mincing, just totally gay version of the character as seen through Ronald Chevalier, which even in 2009, I think that's pretty like, whoa, That's like 70s humor right there. And the fact that Sam Rockwell's game for all of it just cracks me up. You know, that dumb bowl cut and the blonde mustache, it's so funny. And then when it ties into Ronald Cheviot with the, painting the guy for his book cover, it's just seems so funny. Yeah, so
he has to trim the mustache before he can paint it that way.
Yeah.
On the guy.
Awesome. Really funny. So, yeah. All right. Well, we've kind of already talked, as in a sense, I started talking about performance from the get-go. So let's not even... Obviously, Jon Heder is the runaway winner. So, Joe, favorite supporting player in both films?
Favorite supporting... I mean... I mean, I definitely like the Dr. Chevalier as sort of the antagonist. Just very funny, over the top, totally full of himself. I think another hilarious scene is, when he gets hit in the face with a bean pillow, ends up on the ground,
He's
bleeding, and is commanding the police, take him away, but treat him fairly. We all
always fairly,
always with mercy.
And
it's like, they're cops that don't work for you, but it's just it's that sort of attitude of the world revolving around him, and I think that's just hilarious. I think in Napoleon Dynamite, I think it's hard for me to pick one supporting character that I really liked, but I would say that I really like Deb. Just because she's very understated and quiet, but that's not due to any sort of low self-esteem or anything like that. I think that it's also a really great scene when she's on the phone calling Napoleon and is like, I think you're being a very shallow friend. And she says it just so quietly and matter-of-factly, and you can tell she's angry, but it's it never reaches to a point where she's ever shouting or anything else like that. And I just think that she adds a nice kind of, I don't know, interesting and understated element to the sort of dynamic between Napoleon and some of the other characters.
When I first saw it, I will definitely say I agree. But I was just surprised because she's like a child actress in Waterworld and all that, and I thought she added a lot of professional. I mean, she had grown up at that point. She added a lot of professionalism to the sort of crazy antics. So she played it well, and she played it honest. So that's what I like, and with her crazy haircut and their side braid or 80s side braid. But again, that feeds into, as we said, the small town. All right, Bert, favorite character or supporting character from each film?
I would say from Napoleon, I think Uncle Rico. I don't know that the people I knew were quite this extreme, but I could certainly see these people this way, when they were 10 years out of school or whatever, still, yearning back to the good old days, where they could have been somebody, if the coach would have put them in or something like that. I could just, I could think of a few people that may have fit into that. So I thought that was funny.
I just think it's hilarious when Kip says, "Oh yeah, I'm already looking into that." About the time machine. He's like, right on. That's my favorite part of his, where he just he's all looking into space, right on.
Well, that, and then when they tried the time machine, this thing doesn't even work. I could have told you that.
Yeah,
that was funny. And then the Gentleman Broncos, it's I don't know, the one guy that it was just kind of to watch, but it fit the character, and that was that Hectór Jiménez guy, the Lonnie character. I mean, he was also in. He followed.
He's in Nacho Libre.
Nacho Libre.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I thought, oh, he was in Nacho Libre because I'd seen that.
Yeah.
a couple times, but
yeah. Well, again,
but
we
it
were
was
going to
like,
do the
man, he's got
trilogy.
these
We're going to do the
animated
trilogy. I
lips,
just
you
didn't have
know.
time.
Yeah. But I thought he was. I mean, I've never seen an interview with him at all, outside of any character, you know. So I don't know what he's like in, you know, in an interview in so-called real life. But he he just played that up, you know, to extreme, where he was, you know, playing, I guess, a female or. I
Like
don't
I
know what
said, there's a lot of those
He
weird
just
sexual
played it up
undercurrents.
like this is normal.
Yeah.
And even though sometimes it was kind of, you know, like when they first met him on the bus and they're bringing in all that food, you know, he's just got this, you know, personal space issues where his lips are awfully close to whoever he was talking to, and I don't know, he was good, I thought, but it did cringy, of course, but it was still a good performance.
Well, I think it's sort of the reverse of Jermaine Clement. It's so over the top, to me it doesn't work. Whereas Jermaine Clement's over the top, but it still works. I just find him, I mean, he is grotesque. If that's the goal they were going for, they achieved it. I find him partly funny. I mean, I like his narration about the love story. That part cracks me up. She had money. They drive by a junkyard, which is it's totally funny. little bit of John Day Highway stuff going on there in that shot. Or 2026, right, Dave?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's where we would have filmed it.
It had that definitely Johnson feedlot feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the best horse, that part stuff cracks me up. But yeah, he's kind of cringy. That I'll give him that. All right, Dave, what do you got?
Oh, well, I've already mentioned Dr. Chevalier.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think his whole character, everything was
Wait, did I already ask you the question?
no, but I brought it up like in the
yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
Like I just think he was awesome, and kudos to what's his mom's name? Jennifer Coolidge. Yeah, she did a great job too. Those two were probably overall my favorite characters in the whole movie, to be honest.
Yeah, I just feel like her potential in the beginning didn't live up to her potential, but her potential when they're at the bus with the Keef, you know,
Yeah.
and she gives. That seems like a lot, you know, $40, which of course is nothing.
Yeah. I liked her scene too when she pulls out her book of her designs.
Yeah.
It felt very Napoleon Dynamite like,
Right.
you know, and I like that. And then in Napoleon, I like Kip Pre-LaFonda. I just like his interactions. I just, you know, those two just had the best scenes, he and Napoleon together, for me. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I agree. Kip's my favorite supporting player, but I'm different. I like Halley Feiffer. I like her character in Gentlemen Broncos. I think she's really funny. You know, just how she's like. It's so much better now that you rewrote it. I just think she's really funny. Yeah, and again, it's all colder. It's all harsher. But I think that's, like I say, that just feels like it's an extension of his experience after post Napoleon Dynamite. So,
and maybe this was done on purpose. I couldn't figure out if she liked him or was using him or both.
I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You know what I mean?
She again. Why does she fall in love with him and kiss him when he's just puked his guts up?
Yeah.
Because she says, "I just realized that everything that I've been feeling from the film is, you know,
real.
like what I've been feeling for you." So
Yeah.
it's just this sort of twisted, sort of fake Hollywood relationship in her mind. So it obviously it's not a big, huge love story because at the end of the film she's just on the mother's fashion show, just sort of one of the bunch. So
because like in Napoleon with Deb, that seemed more real. Like her
there's
feelings
an honest
towards
connection.
Napoleon. Yeah,
remember, there's an honest connection between. There's no honest connection between the two in Gentlemen Broncos for sure. So, All right. Well, we're barreling towards the end of the podcast. Going around the room or around the panel. Joe Field, would you recommend both films?
I would 100% recommend Napoleon Dynamite. I think for people who enjoyed that Napoleon Dynamite and maybe also had an interest in creative writing and wanted to see something kind of weird, sure, I'd recommend Gentlemen Broncos too.
Burt Brown, I kind of just asked you this, but let's get your official final word on this. Would you recommend Gentlemen Broncos?
With caveats and to only certain people. Yeah.
So, not your parents.
Right. Yeah. They wouldn't do that. Yeah.
My parents wouldn't know what to make, and they're fairly sophisticated.
My dad
movie
watched
watchers.
Lawrence Welk when I was a kid almost every Sunday, so you can't have him watch this show.
Oh, my parents didn't watch Lawrence Welk, but I think they would be like, "What?"
Yeah. The Napoleon Dynamite, I totally would. It's a Utah thing. It's very popular here.
Hey, do they still have a festival? Do they still have a Napoleon Dynamite festival in Prescott or Preston?
Preston, I don't know. There's a back.
Because they were having. I wish in my 30s I could have taken place on that tot eating contest.
Yeah, there you go. A few years after the show, the Utah State Fair hired Heder and the kid that played Pedro, and they did 2 or 3 commercials for the Utah State Fair as those characters.
Yeah,
and they were pretty funny. You know, talking about just being Napoleon and Pedro, talking about the fair. It was kind of funny. But they were good sports about it, I guess.
And but, probably got totally paid.
No, I'm sure they did, but it was still fun. You know, they did it, you know, for a silly little commercial. So.
Sure. All right, Dave. What do you got?
Yeah, I would recommend Napoleon Dynamite, but my parents wouldn't get it. But you know, and I would recommend Gentlemen Broncos just to see Dr. Chevalier. I just think his character is just one of Jared Hess's best. I mean, I think Napoleon obviously is the best character, but I just think Dr. Chevalier is hilarious for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty funny. I mean, I second time through, once I settled into his style, I was definitely. I mean, I was laughing the first time about the suffixes, the power of the suffix. You know? but I didn't fully enjoy it because I hadn't made up my mind if I liked his performance or not. So the second time through, I was enjoying it.
He would always throw in like anus at the end too.
Right.
There's another one of your references. You know, the sexual.
No, it's definitely he's definitely being much more randy in this film for sure.
Well, since Joe's a published writer, would Joe turn into Dr. Chevalier?
You should.
And talk about the pronoun or whatever. Write a book on the pronoun.
You know, I wish I'd seen enough films to memorize the dialogue because all that about the no, brute. You know, even when he's brute.
Oh yeah,
he's trying bronchus or whatever he's saying.
Brochanus or something.
Yeah.
No. It's funny. It's very cartoony, but it's funny.
Yeah.
You know. All right, Gentlemen Broncos. That's a wrap for tonight. Thank you for taking part. Everybody else out there, keep listening and watching and like us on all those different streaming or social media or platforms. So thanks everybody.
Yep, see you.
Take care. Thank you for listening to Fabulous Film and Friends. Copyright 2024, a Bel Air Films production.